So I was inducted into the liberal studies program at NYU, and I'm actually thankful for that.
You were lucky enough to study right in the heart of Manhattan, right? Tell us more about studying at NYU, where the city really is your campus.
They say the city is your campus so casually, like it doesn't take a whole year to just adjust to the city.
Would you want to share a little bit about navigating that journey?
Coming from India, I ended up taking way more than I could.
I think mental health for students during college becomes a pretty real challenge.
To thrive in New York, you have to be a bit off.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Spill the Tea with CC, where we get insider insights from students who've walked the talk. In this very exciting episode, we have a student an alumni from NYU who will share all his insights into a real life experience and give us a glimpse into what it's like to live and study in the city of dreams. So if you're in high school and interested in applying to college, be sure to hit subscribe for all the latest updates on college and studying abroad. Now I want to welcome our very special guest, Svaraj. Welcome, Svaraj.
Thanks for having me.
Can you give us a little bit of an introduction on yourself briefly?
Hi, I'm Svaraj. I went to NYU and I'm the class of 2021, and now I'm a real estate developer, dude. I was an economics major over there.
Fantastic. So we're really excited to dig into your experiences and really understand what it's like to be a student on the NYU campus, or lack thereof. So let's talk first about your academic experience. Describe what it was like to be a student there, your classes, your interactions with professors, and perhaps the resources that you felt facilitated your intellectual development and growth.
So I was inducted into the liberal studies program at NYU, and I'm actually thankful for that because it opened my mind to the entire realm of possibility that laid in the human experience, because we had classes on philosophy, art history, and writing. So philosophy had like 3 different core classes, then art history had 3 different core classes, and writing just had 2. But I was free to explore whatever subjects I wanted to.
And how do you feel like this exposure to these humanities subjects shaped you as a student, even though you did finally go into economics, computer science, other subjects? How did this foundation set you up for success?
So liberal studies really helps you learn how to critically analyze things. You know, the science of breaking down whatever text you're given and really just understanding not what the author is trying to say, but liberal studies just helped me learn how to really critically analyze things. If I put that into context of what I'm doing now, it helps me like go through contracts really thoroughly, really break down whatever structure there is into it and open it up for everyone.
We've always believed that understanding the principles of philosophy, going back to like ancient texts and wisdom and first principles, is so critical in every field to set yourself up for success, whether you're in tech or in the sciences or in, any field, for the reason that it prepares you to critically think, equips you to ask why, rather than just taking things at face value. It is a practice of continually questioning reality and truth to approach a more like holistic and comprehensive understanding of situations.
Yeah, so my first philosophy lesson was exactly what you just said. They just wanted us to extrapolate whatever the hidden meaning was behind everything. Even in art history, we were just extrapolating the hidden meaning behind certain gestures people are doing in paintings. Why the painter put that in there? I
think it pushes you to go like 2-3 levels deeper, right? And to not take anything at surface value, to add complexity and nuance to any analysis that you do.
But sometimes it's a little extra nuance that maybe doesn't need to be understood.
Sure. So speaking of academics, what would you consider as one of your favorite classes at NYU and why?
My absolute favorite class was creative writing, in Intro to Prose and Poetry.
Really?
That's because it was a round table of like 15 students, and we really just came in twice a week and just shared our poem we had written earlier in the week and just analyzed whatever text we were given to read for that week. Over time, we gained so much insight into each other's minds, into each other's lives. We became really tightly knit community of just 15 people. We were just playing board games, reciting poetry, just having the time of our lives.
Oh, lovely. I think these creative pursuits can create such a deep bond between people. It really helps you open up with one another and tap that creative side that you don't necessarily do on a daily basis.
Yeah, but it also turned into kind of a weekly therapy session for every one of us.
Oh, really?
Because we would comment on whatever the other person's writing about, right?
Right.
And like give suggestions. So it would really watch this free therapy.
Writing is a very powerful outlet to process emotions.
Always.
And it also helps develop a lot of empathy when you are interacting with other people's writing. So I've always been such a strong proponent of writing. Again, no matter what subject you ultimately get into, no matter what profession you want to get into, having a strong foundation in writing and the ability to build empathy through, the expression of yours and other people's emotions in the written form is like a superpower, in my opinion. Anyway, speaking of just building empathy with other people, New York City is full of people, and not just any people, but all kinds of people, right? Incredibly diverse, incredibly sort of colorful of a city, and you were lucky enough to study right in the heart of Manhattan, right? Tell us more about studying at NYU, where the city really is your campus.
They say the city is your campus so casually, like it doesn't take a whole year to just adjust to the city. It's not just living in a fast-paced environment, it's like dealing with, like you said, all kinds of people who live there. And like the weather, it changes every second. Like I could go into class, it'll be 60 Fahrenheit, and I'll come back out, it'll be 30. It teaches you how to adapt.
Definitely, especially coming from a place like India, I suppose.
Yeah.
Transitioning to that environment.
Like in India, I'm not walking to office. Over there, I would definitely walk to class.
But tell us more about how you leveraged living in the city. Like, did you take advantage of, say, like all the exciting events or museums, or just like everything that's always going on there?
So my first year in the city, I mean, it was hot, but I definitely tried to explore as much as I could. So I did all the basic tourist stuff, went to the Statue of Liberty, went to the Met, went to the MoMA, went to Central Park on the weekends. And then once you become acclimatized to the city, that's when you start finding all the hidden stuff. And it's really cool. I don't even know where to begin.
I can imagine as a student being surrounded by like people who are really different than you really forces you to like open your mind to different ways of being. And NYU has always valued sort of the fact that they attract people like of all different creeds and backgrounds and races and religions. And, they enforce that people like really seek out differences and celebrate them. And I think that happening at such a formative stage of your development, like right fresh out of high school where you grew up with largely the same types of people around you, can just make you such a more like evolved person in the future.
Yeah, but you also feel very lost in the beginning.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like there's 30,000 people on campus.
Yeah.
There's, I don't know, 1 billion people in the city. You just get lost in a sea of sharks.
I can imagine. No, I mean, that's very fair. And I think it's important for students to know, like when they are applying to NYU, that like the lack of the campus also means that you sort of don't have such a strong, intimate community feeling that maybe some other universities do offer. Feel free to disagree.
So NYU, your first year, they force you to live in student accommodation.
Okay.
So luckily I found myself in Third North, which is just 3 towers, and there's 950 freshmen in those 3 towers.
Oh, wow.
And people from all schools.
Right.
Stern, Gallatin, Tisch, CAS, Liberal Studies, everyone all together in 1 tower.
I see.
Right.
And what was that like?
I found the best friends from my college life in that first year within those 3 towers. We're still in touch.
So, Svaraj, tell me more about your economics and computer science classes.
Economics classes at NYU are just really large. Like there's lectures of like 100 people.
Okay.
And like you get lost in the city, you get lost in those classes as well. Sometimes the TAs aren't able to give you enough time. Sometimes the professor isn't able to give you enough time. It's really different from your liberal studies classes, because in liberal studies we had like a maximum of 20 people in our classes, and the professor really made it a point to like talk to you after class, or even during class, just to really understand what was the best way to teach the material to you. Whereas once you get to economics, they're just cramming information down your throat, like,
Really?
Or even computer science. I didn't end up pursuing computer science because I just took on so much workload that I couldn't really finish it, because I was doing computer CS, I was doing economics, I was doing business, I was doing LS. It was just a lot. I was all over the place.
So how did you navigate sort of being a small fish in a big pond when it came to the econ major? Like, what advice might you give to someone who's
Talk to
in a
your
similar-
guidance counselor.
Really?
NYU provides you with an academic counselor who tells you what your curriculum requirements are, what exactly the things are that need to be done to accomplish your major.
Sure.
And they actually encourage you to study whatever else you want on the side without telling you that, hey, this is getting a little too much for you. Coming from India, I ended up taking way more than I could because I just thought I could just do it because Indian education was like really easy. Whereas over there, I had to organize things for myself. And that was the hard part.
Yeah,
right?
I can imagine. No, I think that's such a salient point that every student really needs to understand their own bandwidth and like their own capacity to take on work. And that's very individual and that's very different for every student. But you can't always compare an Indian course load to like a US college course load 1-to-1. Like they're very different in terms of how demanding they are. So as freshmen, I think we've all made this mistake where we like sign up for way too many things or like get involved in 7 different clubs and do all these different courses. And then suddenly you're just raining down with all this pressure on you and you realize, okay, well, like I need to take a step back. And I think college is also about having fun and exploring and enjoying yourself. And you know, it's not going to be fun if you're slogging 24/7 in the library, you know? Yeah. So I think self-knowledge here plays a really important role and, you know, every student like needs to know. I mean, some students love that, like love the pressure of taking many courses or too many credits, etc. And like that's great for them.
Yeah, I was loving it initially.
Sure.
And then I realized I have undiagnosed ADHD and that's why I'm doing it.
Right.
So if you have undiagnosed ADHD, get diagnosed, dude.
Literally, I think mental health for students during college becomes a pretty real challenge. I mean, like when you're at home, you still have so much support, so many resources around you. And for the first time, you are having to manage on your own. And would you want to share a little bit about navigating that journey or?
Of course. So like a couple years into like my whole NYU experience, I realized that maybe things aren't right for me over here. I was also exploring the possibility of switching colleges, but I just decided to see a mental health professional instead, which the college was actually really happy to provide. That's covered in your tuition fees and whatever. So yeah, that was pretty easy. I had sessions once a month. It was pretty good. They try to help you in whatever capacity they can, whatever the best solution is for you.
I think it's so powerful to like seek professional help in these cases. As you mentioned, like getting diagnosed is like so helpful because you know you can actually manage and treat whatever condition you might have and
take on less workload.
Yeah, and they might very well give you that advice, and maybe you might be someone who it never occurred to you that was an option.
It never did,
right?
because when I was in high school, I was like a really good student. I was getting good grades without having to study like that much. Once I got to college, I was at least the first year was a breeze. Just intro classes, like easy philosophy classes, just essays. That's the easy part, and then you get to economics and CS, and things get so hard that you need help. You can't just be working 24/7. Like before you start getting into the working part, you're like, okay, this is going to be really easy for me because everything's been easy for me in the past. It isn't.
Just managing expectations ahead of time.
Definitely.
Give yourself that cushion of like, I just think you should give yourself grace. Like as a student, you're already experiencing so many new things that it's okay to not be excelling at every single thing, right?
You're like 6,000-7,000 miles away from home.
Yeah.
Like just take that into consideration first, and then just make whatever decision you want to.
Anyway, coming to our next sort of set of questions. Tell me more about the type of student that attends NYU. Are there any common characteristics that you see come up across what is otherwise a very colorful mix of people? Like what is common among all of you?
NYU has every kind of student imaginable. You have the rowdy people, you have the really, sorry to say the word, but like the massive nerds, the jocks. Even though it's not a really big sporting college, you still have the sportsmen. That being said, NYU attracts rebels, like people who aren't fitting into the general norm of society, and they actually want those people over there because to thrive in New York, you have to be a bit off.
Wow. And so in what way were you a rebel, like at the time of your application?
So I applied to the liberal studies program. Like I said, my application was all about the God Delusion by Richard Dawkins, and how India and Indians in general just fell into the entire context of that book, and how I, growing up, like sometimes not enter temples, would refuse to go with my grandparents to whatever societal obligations we had to go to, and how the sense of morality in India is really shaped by religion. And that's a lot of what I wrote about in my Common App essay.
Right.
And I think that's actually what got me into NYU.
So interesting. And are these the types of conversations that you saw also happening on campus, like dialoguing and discoursing on these like arguably controversial and sort of divisive type conversations?
So my first year I was in a dorm, and everyone was constantly talking about Trump just got elected, right?
Oh, that's right.
Everyone was constantly talking about like what the hell's going to happen next. Like I was discovering stuff I didn't knew existed earlier. I was getting exposed to new ideas every day. People were just constantly talking about what's going to happen next, to not just to the country but to the world. And I was just sitting there like, I'm just trying to get through my grades. Like I really didn't want to be included in all those conversations, but it's okay. It's a normal part of living in New York that you're exposed to all that conversation all the time. Yeah, there's a reason why New York has the most number of protests in the world. Like most of the people who are protesting, they're NYU students.
Yeah. So there's a certain activist energy, you would say, of students like really determined to change the world. And they feel like very much mobilized to be taking action in this place and among these people.
Yeah.
Okay. So as we draw to a close, thank you so much for sharing such wonderful details about your experience. But now if you think about students who are maybe in high school, just thinking about applying to NYU, what advice would you give students who may really want to go, and how would they optimize their chances of admission, like based on what you understand about the college?
Play on your strengths.
Okay.
Definitely play on your strengths. Like choose which school you want to go to. Really, not based on what your parents are saying, because you can enter into CAS or LS or Gallatin and then switch to Stern or whatever you want later on, depending on what you want to do. But definitely play on your strengths and focus in on what school you want to go to. Be a rebel. Just be a rebel.
I think NYU values individuality and being a unique personality and amplifying your identity, right? So if you are, a member of a certain community, or if you have certain background, to shed as much light on it as you can and really show how you stand out in your application, right? Like you choose to write your essay about that really like niche village that your family comes from, or like that very specific sect of religion that your family practices. Like these are all things that students have found help them be successful in the NYU process, because this is exactly what NYU is looking for. Like we want those kids who are culturally rooted and who will contribute to these conversations on our campus, but will bring their own unique novel perspective and ultimately advance the collective pursuit of collective understanding and ultimately a more comprehensive view of truth. Any final words on what advice for students in general?
Get diagnosed.
Get diagnosed.
100%.
That's fair.
Get diagnosed before it's too late. Manage expectations. Everything else. Be a rebel.
That's all for this episode of your friendly neighborhood college counselor and Spill the Tea with CC. If you liked the video, hit the like button, share this video with anyone who might be considering going to college in the city, and leave in the comments below why you are a rebel in your life.